Sarah sat in seat 14F on Flight 447, flying from New York to London. She wore jeans and a gray shirt, her dark hair falling across her face as she slept. Nobody knew who she really was. The Boeing 777 flew high above the Atlantic Ocean, at 37,000 feet. Most passengers slept or watched movies. Flight attendants moved quietly through the aisles. Sarah had been awake for almost 20 hours. She worked for a company that made airplane parts, and had meetings in New York. Just 8 months ago, she had retired from the United States Air Force. After 12 years of service, she had flown dangerous missions in 3 different countries. She had fought in real combat operations. Now she just wanted a normal life, away from war and danger. That is why she took this consulting job. It kept her connected to aviation, but without the constant fear and danger. She just wanted to sleep on this flight and rest her tired body. Within 5 minutes of takeoff, she was sleeping peacefully. An old man in seat 14 looked at Sarah and smiled. He whispered to a flight attendant, "This young lady looks very tired. Maybe let her sleep." The flight attendant agreed. The plane was quiet and normal. Captain Robert Hayes and First Officer Jennifer Martinez flew with no problems. They had flown this route many times. It was always safe. But far away, something dangerous was happening. 2 military fighter jets took off from a secret location. These were Su-35 jets, fast and powerful. They flew without telling anyone. They had no flight plan, and did not answer when controllers tried to talk to them. On the ground, military commanders watched their radar. They saw the 2 jets moving toward the passenger planes. They became worried and called all airplanes to move away. But it was unclear which direction was safe. The military controllers talked to Captain Hayes. Their voices sounded worried. Captain Hayes sat up straight when he heard their words. 2 unknown military jets were coming toward his airplane. Captain Hayes told the flight attendants to stop serving food and make sure all passengers had seat belts on. He said there might be rough air coming. Captain Hayes and First Officer Martinez talked about what they could do. They could not fly like a fighter jet. Their airplane was too heavy and too slow. This made Captain Hayes feel very scared. The military controller's voice came on again. Very urgent. The 2 fighter jets would be near the passenger planes in about 10 minutes. The military jets coming to help were still too far away. Captain Hayes felt his heart beating very fast. He had flown planes for 30 years, but had never felt this scared. He made a decision. He did not care about the rules. He cared about keeping 347 people safe. He picked up the microphone. His hand shook. His voice came out loud, like a scream. "Any fighter pilot on this airplane? I need a fighter pilot. Please come to the cockpit right now." His voice was full of fear and desperation. In seat 14F, Sarah's eyes flew wide open instantly. Her military training made her react to the captain's desperate voice. She was awake and alert in seconds. The old man next to her looked scared. "What is happening?" he asked. Other passengers cried and called their families, thinking something terrible would happen. Sarah unbuckled her seat belt and walked fast toward the cockpit. A flight attendant tried to stop her, but Sarah spoke in a strong voice. I am a retired United States Air Force fighter pilot. I need to get to the cockpit now. The attendant's eyes widened. Sarah's sure voice made the attendant believe her. She took Sarah to the cockpit door and knocked. Captain, she called through the door. There is a passenger out here. She says she is a retired fighter pilot. The cockpit door opened very fast. Captain Hayes looked out and saw Sarah. He looked confused. Sarah did not look like what he thought a fighter pilot would look like. But Sarah spoke before he could ask any questions. Captain Hayes, I am Sarah Mitchell. I am a retired United States Air Force pilot. I flew F-22 Raptors and F-35 Lightning II jets in the military for 12 years. I have over 2,000 hours of flight time in fighter jets. I had 6 confirmed aerial victories. I was a squadron commander. I understand fighter tactics and air-to-air combat. I can help you. The words came out fast and sure. They were military words that Captain Hayes recognized and understood. He looked at this woman and believed every word she said. Relief washed over his face like water. Thank God, he said. Please come inside. Help us. Sarah walked into the cockpit and looked at the radar. She saw the 2 Su-35 jets coming closer. She understood the situation. She picked up the radio and called the military controllers. Her calm, professional voice made them immediately know she was a real fighter pilot. The controller explained quickly. 2 Su-35 jets were coming closer. One had locked radar on a British Airways plane. 4 passenger airplanes were in danger. Military jets were still 12 minutes away. Can you help coordinate defensive movements for all the aircraft in this area? The controller asked. It was an unusual question. Usually, pilots of passenger planes did not do this kind of military work. But this was an unusual situation. Yes, Sarah said, without any doubt. Give me control of all the commercial aircraft in this area. I know how to keep them safe. The controller agreed immediately. He told all the pilots in the area to listen to Sarah's commands and do everything she said. This was the first time in history that a civilian woman controlled multiple commercial aircraft in a military emergency. Sarah looked at the radar again. She thought quickly about what the fighter jets would do. She understood how fighter pilot minds worked. She had been a fighter pilot herself. She knew their tactics. She knew how they thought. She spoke into the radio with commands for the 4 aircraft in danger. All aircraft, listen carefully. Aircraft 1. Descend to 25,000 feet now. Aircraft 2. Stay at 37,000 feet. Aircraft 3. Climb to 39,000 feet. Aircraft 4. Descend to 23,000 feet. Do this now. The pilots followed her commands. The 4 big commercial airplanes spread out at different heights. This made it much harder for the Su-35 jets to attack them. Fighter pilots need to focus on one target. If the targets were at different heights and spread out, it was very hard to attack. Sarah watched the radar carefully. The Su-35 jets came closer and closer. They tried to lock their radar on different aircraft. But Sarah told the pilots to turn and move at just the right moments. The Su-35 pilots got confused. They could not get good targets. All aircraft, turn left now, Sarah commanded. The 4 planes turned left together. Now climb in coordinated movements, she said. 3 of the planes climbed, while 1 stayed low. The military jets tried to follow, but they got more confused. Sarah knew exactly what she was doing. She was using her fighter jet knowledge to protect these big commercial planes. She was like a chess player, moving each plane to the perfect spot. For 6 minutes, Sarah gave commands. She was thinking like a fighter pilot, understanding every move the enemy pilots would make. She knew their training. She knew their weapons. She knew their thinking, because she had been trained the same way. The 4 passenger planes moved in patterns that made it impossible for the Su-35 jets to attack. Sarah told each pilot exactly when to turn, exactly when to climb, exactly when to descend. Every command was perfect. Every movement was exactly right. The military jets became frustrated. Their pilots were angry that they could not defeat 4 slow commercial airplanes. They made several high-speed passes through the area, but each time Sarah's commands kept the commercial planes safe. The Su-35 pilots grew more and more angry. Then something changed. The Su-35 jets suddenly turned around. They flew away very fast, at supersonic speed. Sarah asked the military controller why they had left. The answer came back immediately. The NATO fighters have arrived. 4 F-15 Eagles just appeared on their radar. They are coming toward the Su-35s at high speed, with weapons ready. The hostile pilots saw them and ran away. Sarah took a deep breath. The emergency was over. The NATO fighters followed the Su-35 jets and made sure they left the area and never came back. Sarah told all 4 commercial aircraft to go back to their normal flight paths and altitudes. The pilots thanked her with emotion in their voices. Captain Hayes shook Sarah's hand very hard. His eyes were wet with tears. You saved our lives, he said. Thank you. Thank you so much. When the airplane finally landed in London, it was the biggest news story on all the television stations. Emergency vehicles lined the runway. Reporters wanted to talk to Sarah. News channels played stories about how a sleeping passenger turned out to be a fighter pilot who saved hundreds of lives. The passengers on the plane stood up and clapped when they learned the truth about Sarah. They cheered for her. Many passengers came up to her and thanked her personally. Some passengers had tears of happiness in their eyes. They kept saying, "You saved our lives. Thank you. Thank you so much." The old man who sat next to Sarah could not stop smiling. He kept shaking her hand over and over again. He told everyone around him, "This young lady next to me is a real hero. She was sleeping the whole time, and nobody knew." Sarah gave only one short interview. She said, "I just did my job." Any trained fighter pilot would have done the same thing. The real heroes are the commercial pilots who trusted me and followed my commands when everything was scary and dangerous. They were the brave ones. Inside the airport, Sarah talked with military officials for many hours. They asked her many questions about what she did and how she did it. They told her that her actions would be studied by military and aviation people around the world. 3 months later, a very high military general called Sarah. He asked her to come to a special meeting in Washington, D.C. When she arrived, the general offered her a new job. He wanted her to create a program called Commercial Aviation Tactical Defense, or CADD. This program would teach commercial pilots how to protect their planes from military threats. It would create ways for civilian pilots to talk with military controllers during emergencies. It would help many future flights stay safe. Sarah thought about her choice. She had left the military to have a peaceful life. But she remembered those passengers on the flight. She remembered Captain Hayes's scared voice. She knew she could help save many lives if she took this job. She said yes. For 5 years, Sarah worked on this program. She trained hundreds of commercial pilots in basic defensive moves. She created emergency communication systems that connected civilian pilots with military controllers. In seconds, she helped make commercial aviation safer for everyone. She traveled to different countries, teaching pilots how to protect their planes. She wrote training books and made training videos. Thousands of flights a year now had better protection because of Sarah's work. Airlines that used the CADD program reported that their pilots felt more confident and more ready for any emergency. Sarah's program became the world standard for aviation safety. Countries around the world asked her to come teach their pilots. Her work saved many lives, even though people never heard about it. No dramatic rescues happened. No emergencies occurred. But pilots were ready if danger ever came. That was Sarah's real success. One day, 5 years later, Sarah was on another airplane, going to visit her family. She felt happy and peaceful. As she looked out the window, she thought about the day when the captain screamed for a fighter pilot. She thought about how strange it was that she was sleeping on that exact plane at that exact moment. She thought about how all the pilots now had training because of what happened that day. She thought about how many future flights would be safer because of her work. She thought about Captain Hayes and First Officer Martinez. She wondered what they were doing now. She hoped they were still flying safely. Most of all, she thought about the sleeping woman in seat 14F, who had been ready when needed. She was a warrior inside, but she looked like an ordinary passenger. She saved lives with knowledge, not weapons. She saved lives with calm thinking, not violence. She saved lives by doing what her training had prepared her to do. That is the story of the fighter pilot who slept peacefully until the captain screamed. That is the story of how heroes sometimes live among us. And we never know. Until the moment comes when everything changes. Sometimes a person's greatest strength is the quiet knowledge they carry inside. Sometimes a person's greatest victory is not winning a fight, but saving lives. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one sleeping peacefully, ready for anything.